Churches have hidden the most explosive truth about Jesus from you. He wasn't just a preacher, but a master of quantum manifestation. The lost texts reveal that his miracles were actually precise applications of universal laws that any awakened person can master. For centuries, manipulated translations have kept humanity begging for divine favors, when in reality we have direct access to conscious co-creation technology. Get ready to discover the secret method that transforms empty prayers into irresistible, energetic commands. If this hidden knowledge resonates with your soul, hit that like button now and subscribe to the channel to access more revelations that can transform your reality forever. There's a form of communication with the source of all that is so powerful that it was deliberately hidden from the masses. This isn't your ordinary prayer, where we simply ask for help or divine intervention. We're talking about an ancient method that allows human beings to become co-creators of reality, active partners in manifesting miracles. Authentic spirituality has always known this, but few have managed to preserve this sacred knowledge through the centuries. The awakening of consciousness reveals that we're not victims of circumstances, but architects of our own experience. This fifth mode of prayer represents advanced spiritual technology, where the practitioner doesn't beg for changes, but communicates directly with the universal energy field. It's like discovering we had access to a direct phone line with the Creator all along, but we were only using smoke signals. True gnosis emerges when we understand that we're an integral part of the divine matrix, not external observers asking for favors. Jesus, in his deepest and most hidden teachings, revealed this superior form of spiritual communication. However, conventional translations diluted this wisdom, transforming a revolutionary method of co-creation into simple spiritual begging. Authentic mysticism has always preserved these techniques, transmitting them through initiatic lineages that understood the true power of awakened human consciousness. That's why certain esoteric traditions spoke of becoming like gods, not out of arrogance but from recognition of our true divine nature. Imagine for a moment, what if every prayer you've made until now was like trying to start a car without putting the key in the ignition? You feel the frustration, you turn and turn, but nothing happens because you don't know the fundamental secret. This fifth mode is exactly that lost key. The difference between begging for miracles and commanding reality through conscious energy. When we master this technique, we stop being passive spectators of life to become conductors of the cosmic orchestra. True illumination isn't some distant mystical state, but the practical ability to shape experience through conscious communication with the creative forces of the universe. This knowledge was preserved in ancient texts, encoded in sacred symbols, and whispered among initiates for millennia. Now finally, the time has come to reveal these secrets to those who are ready to claim their true power. Because there's something even more impressive. A practical demonstration of this method that happened in the American desert, that a man named David, a direct descendant of the first inhabitants of these sacred lands, decided to demonstrate the true power of applied spirituality. David wasn't a spiritual showman or a guru seeking followers. He was simply a man who carried in his blood the ancestral gnosis, the hidden knowledge that his ancestors preserved through generations of persecution and forgetting. When he invited his friend to accompany him to an ancestral stone circle, he didn't promise spectacles or elaborate ceremonies. His energy was that of someone who knows secrets that transcend the limitations of the common mind, someone who understands the invisible laws that govern the manifestation of reality. The chosen location was described as a place where the skin between worlds is very thin, an expression that reveals deep understanding about the energy portals that exist at certain points on the planet. There, David removed his work boots, stepped on the sacred earth with bare feet, and closed his eyes. There were no elaborate chants, ritual dances, or dramatic invocations. What happened next would challenge everything the West teaches about prayer and manifestation. Instead of asking for rain, David did something revolutionary. He felt the rain as if it were already happening. Imagine for a moment the depth of this technique. David viscerally experienced the sensation of mud between his toes. inhaled the characteristic aroma of wet earth, visualized corn growing tall in his village due to abundant precipitation. He didn't just imagine these scenarios, he lived them with all his senses, creating an internal reality so powerful that the universal energy field had no choice but to respond. This is true mysticism in action, not escape from physical reality, but conscious command over it through applied awakening of consciousness. A few hours later, something extraordinary began to manifest. Black clouds emerged over the Sangre de Cristo mountains, bringing a storm so intense that the parched soil couldn't absorb such quantity of water. The rain continued for days, causing floods and completely transforming the arid landscape. When questioned about the disproportionate intensity of the phenomenon, David smiled with the wisdom of someone who knows both the power and limitations of the ancestral technique. But there was something even deeper in this demonstration, a fundamental principle that separates conscious manifestation from simple positive thinking. Disturbing truth: when we begin from the already achieved result, we rewrite the laws of physical reality. This isn't abstract mystical theory, but consciousness technology tested for millennia. Jesus perfectly mastered this technique, which is why his miracles seem to defy all known natural laws. He didn't work gradually to heal the sick or multiply food. He started from the point where healing and abundance already existed. The awakening of consciousness reveals that time is a mental construction, and those who understand this can access any result in the present moment. When a child gets hurt and parents say it'll get better little by little, they're programming a slow healing. But what if we said, you're already healed, and felt this as absolute truth? The secret gnosis behind this technique lies in understanding that the universal energy field doesn't distinguish between past, present, and future. It only responds to the current vibrational state of our consciousness. If we emanate the energy of needing to be healed, we'll continue needing to be healed indefinitely. However, when we emanate the energy of I'm already healed, the universe reorganizes reality to mirror this internal truth. It's like reprogramming the matrix code, altering the fundamental parameters of our experience. Practical mysticism teaches that we're conscious programmers of reality, not victims of external circumstances. A powerful example of this application happened when a man discovered a tumor in his bladder in the year 2000. Instead of accepting the conventional medical protocol based on gradual healing, he fully applied this hidden spiritual technology. He didn't visualize the tumor slowly shrinking, didn't affirm that he was getting better. He viscerally felt with all his senses the experience of already being completely healed. He internally lived the reality of a perfect, healthy body, free from any anomaly. When he returned to the doctors, prepared for surgery if necessary, he discovered there was no longer any need for medical intervention. Practical illumination teaches us that the difference between these two modes isn't philosophical, but vibrational. That's the difference between tuning into a radio station with static and receiving a crystal clear signal. When we work toward the result, we maintain the frequency of lack. When we work from the result, we anchor the frequency of fulfillment. This subtle but revolutionary distinction is what separates those who consistently manifest miracles from those who live hoping life will get better. However, to fully understand this technology, we need to examine how the original sacred texts were deliberately altered to hide these secrets. For centuries, humanity was deliberately kept away from its true spiritual power through manipulated translations of sacred texts. What we know today as "ask and you shall receive" is a gross distortion of a revolutionary teaching that Jesus transmitted about conscious manifestation. The discovery of the Nag Hammadi manuscripts in the 20th century revealed a shocking truth. The original teachings about communication with the source of all that is were systematically altered to keep the masses in a state of spiritual dependence. Authentic gnosis always knew there's an abysmal difference between begging and commanding reality. In the Gospel of Thomas, preserved in its original Aramaic form, we find the true instruction: ask without hidden motive, and be surrounded by your answer. This isn't a simple linguistic variation. It's a completely different technology for communicating with the universal energy field. Without hidden motive means praying without attachment to the outcome, without the desperate energy of someone who needs something to happen to feel complete. It's the spirituality of active detachment, where the awakening of consciousness frees us from the neurotic need to control specific outcomes. The second part of the instruction reveals the true secret. Be surrounded by your answer. This means that prayer can only be answered when we're already being surrounded by it, when we're already experiencing the reality of our request in the present moment. It's impossible to be surrounded by something that doesn't exist yet. Therefore, the technique requires that we access the vibrational frequency of the already manifested result. Hidden mysticism always preserved this knowledge in its initiatic schools, while exoteric religions offered diluted versions to the masses. Imagine the practical difference. When a person prays saying, "Please heal my disease," they're transmitting to the universe the energy of "I'm sick and need help." The energy field, which functions like a perfect mirror, reflects back exactly that reality: more disease and more need for help. However, when someone prays from the energy of already being surrounded by perfect healing, when they viscerally feel gratitude for already being healthy, the divine matrix reorganizes physical reality to mirror this internal truth. The difference isn't in the words, but in the energy that accompanies them. Jesus perfectly understood this quantum mechanics of manifestation, which is why his miracles were natural manifestations of a consciousness operating according to higher laws. True illumination isn't an abstract mystical state, but practical mastery of these universal energy laws. When translations were altered in the 4th century, humanity lost direct access to this revolutionary spiritual technology. However, those who can decipher the original codes discover they have access to an internal operating system infinitely more sophisticated than they ever imagined possible. Humanity possesses internal technology so advanced it would make any supercomputer look primitive, but most people live completely oblivious to its potential. This technology doesn't depend on electronic circuits or complex algorithms. It operates through the universal language of feelings and conscious emotions. Authentic spirituality has always known that the energy field of the source of all that is responds exclusively to specific vibrational frequencies, and that our complete sensory system functions as a direct communication interface with the divine matrix. When David performed his rain ritual, he wasn't simply imagining positive scenarios or practicing superficial creative visualization. He consciously activated all his sensory channels to create an internal experience as real as any physical event. He felt the texture of mud between his toes, deeply inhaled the characteristic aroma of wet earth, heard the sound of drops hitting leaves, and visualized corn growing luxuriantly in his village. The awakening of consciousness reveals that this is the fundamental difference between wishful thinking and conscious manifestation: the sensory intensity of the internal experience. Jesus used this same technology when he multiplied loaves or healed illnesses instantaneously. He didn't work just with thoughts or words, but with the complete sensory experience of the already accomplished miracle. Secret Gnosis teaches that our 5 physical senses are just the tip of the iceberg of an infinitely more complex perceptual system. Each sense functions as a specific frequency transmitter, and when all operate in directed harmony, they create a vibrational wave so powerful it reorganizes molecular reality around us. The practical application of this hidden technology can be demonstrated through a simple exercise. When you want to manifest financial abundance, don't limit yourself to repeating empty mental affirmations. Physically feel the weight of bills in your hands. Inhale the characteristic aroma of fresh paper money. Hear the sound of coins jingling in your pocket. Visualize the bank statement with the desired amount, and mainly, experience the emotional energy of gratitude for already possessing this abundance. Practical mysticism teaches us that the more detailed and sensorially rich the internal experience, the faster it materializes in external reality. This spiritual technology represents the natural evolution of human consciousness, the next step in our journey of collective illumination. It's not about supernatural magic, but applied spiritual science, understanding that we're multidimensional beings capable of direct communication with the creative forces of the universe. When we master this conscious sensory interface, we stop being spiritual beggars to become active co-creators of reality. The energy we emanate through this practice isn't just ours, it's the very energy of the source manifesting through us, transforming quantum possibilities into tangible experiences. Humanity's future depends on our capacity to remember and apply this ancestral knowledge that has always been available to those with eyes to see and ears to hear. You just accessed knowledge that was deliberately hidden for centuries. The question now is, are you going to keep living like a spiritual beggar, or are you going to claim your power as a conscious co-creator? How many miracles did you miss out on by not knowing this technology? How many prayers went unanswered because you were using the wrong language? The universe is waiting for you to stop asking and start commanding through feelings. Practice this today. Choose something you want to manifest. Feel as if it's already real and watch the magic happen. Your life will never be the same after this awakening. Subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell to keep discovering the most powerful secrets of conscious manifestation that they don't want you to know.